Welcome to another episode of Sabine's Common Sense. I'm your host, Sabine the Purpose Lawyer. Thank you so much for listening and thank you for helping me be on purpose. All right, let's just get straight into it today. A team member of mine sent me an article about Mark Cuban, and I found it very interesting because as you know, Mark Cuban is NBA owner. He is a billionaire. You've seen him on Shark Tank, all types of stuff. He's uber successful. So these are the type of people you want to listen to when they're talking, right? So he spoke to CNBC and he was talking about, which I found really powerful, how he sacrificed a lot in his early days to get more freedom later on, right? And that's a lot. That's the thing that we are probably missing or realizing that it's really important for you to take that time to put in the work now so that you can have the freedom later. And so Mark's story is interesting because if you think about a billionaire, you don't think about them sleeping on couches, working countless of hours like, a mad person and just really grinding and putting in the work. And what happened to him is that he ended up selling a company that he started for like millions of dollars. And then he took that money, invested it, and that's how he became who he is today. But he read a book that inspired him, Cashing In on the American Dream and how to retire at 35. And so he knew, that if he put in the work that he'd be able to sort of get out early. And I think one of the things we have to keep in perspective is that what we're really trying to achieve is more time. That's the only thing that's finite and we're never going to get more of. And so putting in the work, getting the money is great. You'll always be able to buy things. You'll definitely be able to buy things, but you'll always find yourself wanting more time. And so one of the things that I've been doing to try to get more time and replace myself in my business is, hiring people, putting systems in place and all that good stuff. And that's why we do that stuff. Like sometimes I'm like, man, especially this week, it was like back to back to back. Every day was a thing. Every evening was a thing. And I'm like, putting this in perspective, like, yeah, I'm doing it now so that I can get more time. And my guest today, Miss Ericka Williams, she is a serial entrepreneur, but she's so brilliant, really, in her own right. And she's young, but she really has a lot of wisdom. And she kind of talks about that, how she realized early on that, putting in the work in order to build something that's going to buy you time, and then taking the time to slow down and live, right? And enjoy that time. And that's really what we want. So setting your sights on that so that you can actually live the life that you really want to live. And time is the thing that's going to give it to you, not the things. So let's go talk to Ericka and get into it. Hey, Ericka.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for joining me. I'm talking to Ericka Williams of Ericka's Classy Climb.
What's up? What's up?
Yeah. So I'll just tell you guys a little bit about, Ericka and why I'm drawn to her. So we've met in some circles, some instances, and you have such an energy about you that just says freedom. Like it's just like freedom. It's light. You're so authentically you. You could tell that you're just like, I'm just myself, and you have like a good heart to want to like really help people to do things. Not only that, when I say serial entrepreneur, she got all the businesses and she's doing it successfully and living her life free. So Ericka, welcome again.
Well, thank you for letting me come on. I appreciate it. Listen, I'll wear those cowboy boots in New York, Atlanta, don't matter where. I'm gonna put them on.
That's right.
That's usually what happens when she see me at the event.
Yeah. So Ericka, how did you start your journey? So I know that you're a serial entrepreneur. You are from Texas originally?
No, I'm from North Carolina.
Oh.
I'm a military kid, but our family has like huge farms in the North Carolina region, lots of rental properties. And so my parents both were military. Mom did 26 years. We lived in Alaska, Fort Meade, Maryland. We lived in Tennessee. My brother, who was 8 years older, got the cool places. Germany, my dad was born in Japan. Just kind of a mover and shaker in the military circles. Kind of thing.
All those are cool places to be able to live there.
The thing about being military kids, a lot of people either thrive or don't, right? Because you just get used to moving and introducing yourself to people and new situations and new environments.
So do you feel like that experience has helped you today because you interact with a lot of new people all the time?
Man, you know what? I was supposed to get married and I didn't, and I flipped a coin. I said I'm going to move to Nashville, Tennessee, or
Wow.
Austin, Texas. So then I moved, and it's been the best journey ever. Right? We wouldn't have the
Wow.
YouTube, we wouldn't have a lot of the other businesses
Mhm.
if it wasn't for that move.
Mhm.
And the crazy thing is, I had a coffee shop in North Carolina across from Fayetteville State University. It's a historically
Okay.
black college.
All right. It
Loved
was
it for
your
2 years.
coffee shop?
Yep, it was
Wow.
mine. It was Sunset Coffee. We still have the Facebook page up. So there's a guy. Uh, what's his name? Scriven. I forgot the first name of him, but
Okay.
he just got nominated for a Grammy. He's a
Okay.
gospel singer. He used to
Mm.
play at our coffee shop. So I left the
Wow.
Facebook page up to be like, "Yo, that dude played here, right?"
Right.
But then the city got some government funds and they start tearing up the highway, and it really wasn't safe for the students to
Mhm.
walk across to the shopping plaza.
Okay.
And so you know me and maybe four other businesses went under. So
Mm.
I said, all right, things aren't going well. This situation ship is not
Right.
going, we're not going down now. Right. So
Wait, was that your first business?
that was my first brick and mortar business.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yep. And I loved it. It was great. Like I would make milkshakes with espresso in them, and the
Mm.
kids be like, yeah, I need another milkshake. I'm like, it's not the milkshake. It's
Espresso.
espresso. Right. But
Right.
they didn't get that. But and so when I got out to Texas, I tried to get back in the matrix, you know what I mean? I
Mhm.
tried to go work as apartment manager. I was like, man, this ain't enough money, right?
Mhm.
And then I started delivering pizzas at night, and they were like, man, you're always like hustling, you're always climbing.
Right.
And what I would do is I would go two-stepping at my church with a singles group. They go
Okay.
150 people.
Mm.
And I'd hear them change all the pizza clothes, take a shower, and come out my dress, and they're like, "Look at you, girl, coming out here classy." And some girl made a joke
Mm.
about classy climbing, and I named my show. That's how I
Okay.
named it,
Wow, wow. So
like that.
I wanna go back a little bit. I love that and find out because you said your family is mostly military. Like, everyone is
We're a
military.
combination of
Okay.
military and law enforcement. So there was
Okay.
a switch. So our family was an agricultural family near a military base.
Mhm.
And we pretty much go back generationally to like all the way to the Civil War. We have photos and
Wow.
documentation all the way to the Civil War. And so what ended up happening is we were agricultural, but then the 80s happened.
Mm.
Agricultural fallout, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so it's something in there where my grandma kind of just had a team huddle meeting, and it was like, everybody, we are broke.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, everybody, we leaving from over here. We gonna be
Mhm.
living over here,
Right.
in this other part of town. And it's interesting when you see a family that used to have money and then doesn't, and it's
Mhm.
like, everybody, we have to go do something now. And I think when I was two, and I think earlier, when my brother, when they
Mhm.
first did it, long and the story short, everybody in the family went and became police officers, nurses, and military overnight.
Wow.
I mean, it was like a literally, we're at our grandparents' house with our grandma, grandpa, and a bunch of kids because all the parents are either gone somewhere, training, it's
Right, right.
just new stuff. So
So
I
that's
think yeah.
No, sorry about that. That's one of the things I love about you and every time I've heard you speak, you always talk about your past and sort of like where you're from. And I feel like
Mhm,
it's somehow that sort of shaped you. So it's your legacy, right? The legacy that you're a
mhm,
part of. Your family has done a wonderful job of keeping you guys informed and keeping you connected to like your roots, right? So now you're able to
mhm.
know who you are in the world. That's beautiful.
For sure.
So then
And what's I was gonna
no.
say the crazy part is our neighbors saw how hard our family was working,
Mm,
and a German man offered my cousins a couple of rental properties for 35,000. And so
wow.
that's how, and this is an 80, maybe 87,
Mhm.
88.
Mhm.
And so my cousin, who's like a first time police officer, got his house from from our German neighbor. So I mean,
Wow.
just people pay attention. People see your family. They see how hard people work. They notice
Mhm.
it.
That's beautiful. And so that births the seed of entrepreneurship in the family somehow. How did you pick that up and how did you get into entrepreneurship?
So my first job ever was
Mhm.
my cousin made a dollar store. Now he didn't get
Mm.
a franchise. He literally was in, I think, Kosovo or somewhere,
Mhm.
being a military contractor, and he had all this money. He's like, okay, I got to do something smart with it. So he
Right.
came back to America, and in Spring Lake, North Carolina, he got a catalog. This is when you had to do order from the catalog. You know what I'm saying? Order
Right.
it from China out of a book.
Right.
And he ordered all this stuff from China out of the catalog, and it shipped to him, and he started his own dollar store. Well, that
Wow.
was my first job at 14. And something about that, like, you can create anything.
Mm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like you
Right.
literally can create your own business, your own job, your own company. It just was like a switch. Like it made sense. It connected, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And it's not like he did all this marketing. People just showed up like, oh, dollar store, like, you know,
Right.
and so it blew my mind, right? You build it, they'll come kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So that's interesting. So you guys hear that? You definitely could do it now because he did it
hey,
back in the 80s. There was no
man,
Amazon.
I mean, I was 14, so it was the
Right.
1990s, but
Oh,
but
19.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and
But even then,
no
it was like
Alibaba.
catalog,
Yeah.
no Alibaba, none.
Wow,
And so that's
that's a grind. Hmm.
but it changes a switch in you, right? Like so I tell everybody this and I posted on my Instagram and went a little viral. My
Hmm.
nephew who's 14 has 70 yards and
What?
he has a 21-year-old working for him because he can't drive. And so the 21-year-old
Wow.
old drives them around and they service all these lawns and he goes to school full time, right? So um
Incredible.
he's seen me always have a business. He sees his mother always have a hair salon. So it's like
Hmm.
kids pay attention and it just makes sense, right?
Yeah, that gave
And
me
plus,
chills. I was just like,
when you
wow.
see 14-year-olds like, oh, can I cut your grass? Well, how much? $50. And
Mm-hmm.
well, when you get to 70 yards, it's a legit thing, it's a legit
Yeah.
thing. So
Hmm. Awesome. So you had this first business. You started it because it was like it was in the blood. You
yeah.
kind of knew that this was a thing that could be thriving, and it
Mhm.
didn't work out. You said you were going to get married, but you didn't. Do you want to talk about that or not really?
Listen, I'm gonna give a good we're gonna do a bleep through that story. Long
Okay.
story short, he was older. And you get right down to marriage counseling and they go, hey, like we need to see your income. We got to see your credit score. We got to talk money. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like, we kept putting that off. And I was like, why are we putting this off? And
Mm-hmm.
so one day before a trip, and he ain't gonna see this video. One
Okay.
day before a trip, I went to go fill the car up before we go on this trip. And I had his wallet.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at the card and it didn't have his name on it. I'm like, oh, what the heck? It had his
Mm-hmm.
mother's name. And
Mm-hmm.
I get home, I said, hey man, what's going on? Like, I could have been stopped with this card that, your
Right.
mama's white and British. Okay. I could
Ooh.
have got stopped. Okay.
Right.
And so,
In North Carolina
uh,
at this point,
in
right?
North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? My family's military cops here, but not that, but they ain't that strong.
You know?
And so then it became that. And at church, we found out that he had like $150,000 of like credit card debt.
Mm.
And because it was so bad, he just deferred off to his mom and let his mom, his paychecks went to his mom's bank account and
Mm.
she paid all his bills. And like she had put the house partly in her name so he wouldn't lose it. And like,
Mm.
so this whole facade of this person was like debt, right? Like,
Wow.
and people say, well, oh, you left him because of debt. No, I left him because he wasn't ready to face it.
Mm.
He
Okay.
he literally paid off his car, and instead of saying, "Man, oof, I'm free now. My car's paid off. I have more money to pay down this debt or do something different."
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go buy a motorcycle."
Ooh.
Right. So
So
his mind
lesson
wasn't
not
even like,
learned.
yeah, and the fact that he was so much older than me, and my families were cops in the area. There
Mm-hmm.
still are, but
Mm-hmm.
he thought, well, I can just go get on the police force because your family and my family was like, no, you have to study, you have to,
Mm-hmm.
get yourself trained up,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was the mindset.
Got
And so
it.
that I think that's why I harp on my YouTube channel and my Instagram about mindset because a lot of people could be free earlier in life
Mm-hmm.
if they fix up here, right?
Ooh. Love
Um,
it.
I couldn't tie myself to this person who wasn't even willing to face themselves. Like,
Wow.
like how can we go down the road together and you're not even we going down the highway with your mom on the debit card? Like, what's going
Right.
like what's going on?
That is
Right?
powerful, Erica. Well,
Yeah,
a couple of things about that. The one thing that you said is, being the mindset is everything, right? So like if you're not even ready to face and acknowledge where you are, you have a long way to go, right? And so
oh,
for
for
people
sure.
to recognize that, I hope you guys are listening to that, especially if you're evaluating being in partnership with someone,
Anybody.
anybody, right? Business or life or what have you, that you're making sure that it's okay to give people room to grow, but you want to make sure that they're on their way. Like there is, that's
Well, and
awesome.
I think we have a society where it's like, oh, it's okay if you marry an older guy, he's more established, he has a house, he has these things.
Hmm.
But when he really doesn't have them,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
it was
he
a
doesn't
wake
have
up.
the mindset, yeah, where is this person leading you?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
If it's supposed to be the leadership of your house, where are they leading you? So
That's
um,
dope.
just something to think about.
Yeah. Do you feel like that was like one of the maybe some people could perceive as a failure, but it was one of the best things that happened to you?
I would say at the time, like maybe a year removed, I was like, oh man, but now I'm like, whoa, thank you, Jesus. Like,
Right.
listen, he put me on the path to Texas, right? And like and honestly, the path to be a millionaire, because I got out to Texas and my mindset was different. My energy was different. And I also thought, it didn't matter. I mean, and I'll be careful with this, people. Be careful. I said, it doesn't matter if you make a certain amount of money. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your spouse, how much debt they're in, as long as they're with you on the game plan. Okay. Right. So when I got to Texas, I'm like, man, I got this extra money now. It'd have been like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Are you on board with this plan?
Got it.
And so it's just money is numbers, right? Like you just, like when somebody says $1 million now, I'm like, well, if you have a $5,000 service, that's 200 people.
Right.
That's nothing. Like, right?
Yeah, the way you break it down.
Right? Like, I remember this guy was fixing ACs, right? AC units, and he charges like $8,000. And so I was just like, man, if he just does like 150 or something of those bad boys a year, he's like at $1 million. So, it's all mindset. It's all mindset.
Wow. And so the business it was doing well, but it had to end because of the situation. And you end up in Texas, but you don't automatically say, let me become an entrepreneur again. You're like, let me do it a little different.
Man, I literally was like, okay, relationship didn't work. This didn't work. Even when I started the coffee shop, people were like, oh, she ain't started that. Ain't no way. She too young. She ain't did that. Because people are so like, they couldn't wrap their head around that. Hey, I just took some money, took a little bit of money and bought these parts. I mean, if you see pictures from my coffee shop on the Facebook page, it ain't like I went luxury. It's like I bought piece by piece, covered stuff up, creative ways.
Right.
And people couldn't wrap their head around that. So I was kind of hurt, right? And I was like, man, I'm just going to go get a job, get in the matrix. And I realized as I tried to get in the matrix, like I'm at my office and I'm giving them recommendations. It's like, they're like, yeah, whatever.
Wow.
Right. And so my claim to fame is like when I was at one of the apartment complexes, it's like a 600 unit apartment complex off 620 in Austin. And we had like new owners. They got money. They're from Arizona. They want to paint the building. They want to do different things. And I said, well, we should, here's what I think. You should hire a painter for $50K a year. And that's all he does every day when he comes in here. He paints all day, all night. Right. And they pretty much looked at me like, girl, shut up. You know what I'm saying? And they end up outsourcing it, over $340,000 that year in paint.
Wow.
Because once the new people, how apartments are. Oh, there's new owners. So people start to panic. Right. They want to renew the leases. Oh, I'm not renewing my lease. So then all of a sudden, instead of, 50 people gone that summer, it was 150 people who left their units. And then you had neighbors seeing stainless steel and new paint going on over next door. Well, I want to move units, or I want my unit painted or stainless steel. So they started, just the numbers just racked up on them. And I was just like, okay, well, every time I'd come to work at that point, I was like, because I was a billings manager. So I knew the numbers. I'm like, okay, anybody want to apologize to me? Anybody
want to say?
Something you got to say. And so what started is I got to meet the guy who was the actual owner of that company. He was like 34 and he's like, what's up? And he was just like some white dude laughing because he got this thing thinking he'd make, a couple thousand, because he would send 2 Hispanic guys that paid like maybe $15 an hour to paint every day. Well, by the end of the summer, he's walking in there like, right. Like he's made all this money off of us. And I just said, hey man, let me take you to lunch. Tell me how you did this. And so 2 things were happening. Right. So I was giving referrals to one real estate agent. So in Texas, they give you the first month's rent, right? Okay. So let's just say this apartment complex is 1,000, right? I gave 70 referrals to this one agent. And every time she would, get them, close them, she'd send me a $50 gift card. I looked in my desk one day and I had like literally a stack of these $50 gift cards. And one of my team members said, girl, you gave her like a $70,000 a year. Wow. And I said, damn, I did. Wow. And I was so pissed, right? I was just so pissed in that moment, right? And so then I took him
these gift cards ain't nothing.
Yeah, $50, that ain't nothing. So then I take to lunch, and I literally call my friend Andrew Bryant. He's Mr. 10,000 Doors in Austin. Okay. And And I said, listen, we're going to start a paint company today.
Period.
like we about to leave this job and we're going to start today. And that just kind of, people saw me on YouTube. I literally was at home and this girl joked. She's like, what do you do all day? Make YouTube videos and eat tacos? I'm like, basically, and take payments over the phone. Right.
Wow.
Like it was good. It was doors and painting was a good living, but, so again, it's just moments where you pay, it just clicks. Like there's only so many hours a day you can work. I'm out here delivering pizzas in 100-degree Texas sun. This don't make no sense.
Right.
And then I'm giving this girl 70 referrals. I look at my desk and I'm like, oh God, I literally gave her like $70,000. Like she driving a Mercedes, smiling with nails done every day. And I'm out here looking like, what's going on? Right. Yeah. So I just tell people, like, pay attention to those moments. Like, some people will be at their job and somebody do something foul to them. And I make this joke, and I know it's terrible for people who work a job. Right. Your boss will get smart with you, and you got to go in the bathroom and talk yourself down to come back into work.
It's like those pivotal moments.
Oh, like, like, got you. I got you. I'm out. Right. And in those two moments, that's what happened. I got my real estate license, and then I started the painting company with my friend. But it just started to pass at that point, right? And YouTube had started to pick up, and I remember
having the YouTube channel, and why?
Oh, so like when I basically moved, I was like, "Hey, I'm moving to everybody does that. I'm moving to Texas." Video, right? And I got rid of that video. It made me sick. Right?
You hated it.
I hated it, right? So I would do motivational stuff because I was kind of down from the whole, marriage thing. And I was trying to like encourage myself. So I would be reading motivational quotes and talking about, and people were like, yeah, it's so motivating. And I was laughing because I'm like, I'm motivating myself, whether you like it or not. It's just an extra, know? And so as I'm tracking that and I'm documenting the whole real estate and learning, what ended up happening for me delivering pizzas is I knew whole neighborhoods. I knew this wealthy side of this part of Austin, and I knew this other side. And then I knew this other part because I had to transfer because one of our managers left. So I transferred with him. And then I learned a whole nother side from delivering pizza. So when I went to my real estate interview, the lady was like, I don't know about her and her. So then I start naming, she had a wall, and I start naming stuff off the map. Oh yeah, this is. And he was like, how you know all these areas? I was like, I deliver pizza.
Do you see how that comes full circle? Like how things that seemingly are not that significant, or you're in the moment like, dang, I got to do this. And then next thing you know, it's something that frees you. That's awesome.
And what was crazy is when I was delivering pizzas, one of the offices, when I moved to that office, all the guys there own their own home. And I was like, how? Right? And I remember one of the guys, and this has been said to me like 5 times. Yeah, if you save $27 a day in a year, it's $10K. Now, this is way before it got popular on Instagram, way before it got popular on Twitter. And I remember him saying that, and I was like, damn. But it wasn't just that. A guy who lost his job at the bank was delivering pizzas. And all the guys were like, you used to work at a bank. Why are you here? Yeah. He was going through stuff, divorce, all kind of stuff. Okay. He had some alcohol problems, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so there's a reason he lost his job at the bank. Okay? Right. And so he basically told all of them, hey, you guys, if you want to qualify for homes and you got all these USDA loans, no money down loans, all you have to do is track your tips for 2 years. And so all these people at the Papa John's, that's what they did. Because it's not like they were leaving to get different jobs. A lot of these guys work Papa John's full time.
And they all own their own home in there?
Yes. Wow. So they were all making so usually if you really talk to some guys that really do it full time, they make $3,000 to $6,000 because they're just driving all day and all night, right? They're doing weekends, they're doing Super Bowl, they're doing all this stuff. And a lot of times you talk to these guys, what's the first thing they do? They'll go get a new car. But because that banker had been there, he was like, no, nobody get cars. Everybody just track your tips. And they're like, what about taxes? And they're like, he's like, track your tips. And then they were able to, pretty much everybody in there got USDA no money down loan homes. It was crazy. Wow. And so I was just sitting there like, it's possible, but up here. Again, every time I've been in some situation or a job, I've always looked back and going, it was a mindset, right? Yeah. People at that job knew, okay, I deliver pizzas. I don't make that much. And the cost of living in Austin, this was like 7-8 years ago, was going up even then. But if I move further out, I can go get a USDA loan, no money down.
Wow.
If I move further out just a little bit, I can go get this house.
Yeah.
And so it's all mindset.
Yeah, I
All
agree with you
mindset.
on the mindset thing. It's like once we get clear on our goals and you get granular with like what exactly it's going to take to get you there, then you realize it's not so hard, right? That's what they did. They,
Mm-hmm.
they helped you to make it plain. Like, well, if you just do this basic, simple step every day, or whatever it takes, then you're going to get there. And I think for the majority of people, we make it to this big hairy thing that it's like, nah, I
Mm-hmm.
can't see that, I can't do that. But can you see $27 a day? Can you just not get a new car right now because you could get a house instead?
Mm-hmm.
Making it super plain, and then it becomes tangible. But yeah, it starts with your mindset and your perception of the thing.
Yeah, I mean, and really, 9 times out of 10, people are here,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is your life, and it's here,
Right?
and you're just going through like, you're like, oh my God, bills, kids, this, that, and if you and sometimes if we stop for a second and just move it out like from year to year,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that ain't that bad.
Right.
This ain't that bad. Like you completely. Perception is everything.
Yeah.
Perception is everything.
I read a book recently, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. It was really, really, a really good book. And so one of the things that's prominent in the book, he talks about drifting, how we're just kind of going with whatever life gives us. We have this, sort of perception of how things are going to go, and we kind of just go. Whatever comes, we just, roll with it. But you're not moving towards your goals, right? You're not moving towards your desire. So if you wake up, which is kind of like what you're saying, and you look at the big picture and you're not moved by what's happening around you, but you intentionally move towards your goals, like then you actually get there, That's awesome.
Listen, the biggest thing for me is I'm from North Carolina, and you could buy a house for nothing. You know what I'm saying? For a long
Right.
time. You could buy a house for pennies on the dollar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I moved to Texas, and the numbers change, right? Because they're bigger numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're just getting you're drifting, and you meet a lot of people who live in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Austin's been going up in price since I got there in 2012.
Really?
You're right. It's been 8 years of just right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would meet girls who were saying, this is always one of those moments. Oh, I was waiting on to get a husband before I bought a house.
Right.
And so I just been renting all these years. And I remember in Austin where you could get a house for $80,000 in the edges of the town. And I'm like, you can't get that now.
Yeah, you can't.
And so a lot of times people are sitting here drifting. They're like living in apartments, just kind of waiting for this magical moment to happen.
Right.
And you better go live your life, girl. Like, like if you want to buy a house, like I'm not even joking. There's 2 white girls from our church. They had bought houses and they were teachers.
Mm-hmm.
They got married to these guys, and the 2 guys were both like, thank God you already own a house.
Oh, wow.
My credit is jacked. Right? like credit is terrible.
Right.
And so, like, imagine if they had waited till they got married and he can't even help them get a house.
Right. And then it's a whole different scenario. Yeah. So, Ericka, how did you get this view on life? Because you're successful and you've been successful at everything that you do. And sometimes when that happens, people get blinded by the let me keep getting, let me keep, earning, let me keep adding because I want to get to this, big climax. But you realize that you got to live along the way, right? You have to enjoy it.
Like between, I remember looking back and I had thought, oh man, this year was so terrible. It was so horrible. And my accountant looked and she said, girl, do you realize you made and this is just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
You made $450,000.
Wow.
And you used to deliver pizzas.
Praise him.
And I was just like,
won't he do it?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Also, and I make a joke that my grandma used to tell me, shut up in the house, because I used to stutter a little bit.
Okay.
And so, and so I'm grown and I'm talking, even with my speech impediments, on YouTube and getting paid via consulting calls, via courses. And so it's like this moment of like, I was complaining about some year and she was just looking at me like,
girl, bye.
Yeah. And so what ends up happening is sometimes you can be like, don't believe your own hype.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 2020 was like that year of like, oh, okay, whoa, let's pay attention here.
Yeah.
Let's pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening here. And I think a lot of times what happens is, when good times keep happening, you're like, let's just keep going. But sometimes you do need to stop and press and look.
Right.
But I will say, like, in a month in 2019, I had my cousin die who was 25, and I had a friend die who was 37 who just got married.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oof, like you got to live.
Yeah.
You know, because he had just became a trucker and he was driving and he got to see all these mountains, and his phone was full of pictures of him like finally seeing stuff.
Wow.
And he just, you know, one night took the wrong combination of something and didn't wake up.
Oh man.
And so it's one of those things where you're like, so many people, and I think 2020 did that for a lot of people. Like,
yes, for sure.
People be like, bump them jobs, right? Because
like everybody,
realize, like,
it's a crisis now. Can't find people to work.
It's time is finite, right? A big thing too, I saw people saying, if you don't have a pandemic baby, that thing's drove me crazy because everybody that works in daycare or children care, they're like, yeah, you're just spending more time one-on-one with your child. Like,
yeah, right.
Like that's the only difference.
Yeah.
and because at a daycare, there's so many children, they notice children that get more time than others just progress faster. And so that's one thing I laughed about 2020 is like pandemic babies. And I'm like, no, you just home.
Right.
You just there with the baby. You seeing it, you know, for yourself. You
and raising your child.
You're a stay-at-home mom. Welcome to the world, you know, kind of thing. And so I just think you really like this whole hustle, grind thing. It had its moment, but I've noticed the turn, right? Ariana Grande, not the singer, but the Huffington Post lady.
Oh, okay. Because I definitely was thinking about the singer.
I know.
My daughter's 8, so she's all about it.
Oh my gosh, she sings that song all the time, don't she?
Yep.
So Huffington Post lady wrote an article called Sleep, like wrote a whole book about rest, just rest.
Right.
Jeff, I don't want to mess his name up, but
Bezos?
Jeff.
No.
Bessie. He's got a German last name. It's like Bethke.
Okay.
He literally wrote a book, To Hell with the Hustle. You know, several people have been writing books. If you notice that it's the turn, right? It's like, and then this is what I really truly believe. You can hustle, but it's a 2 to 5 year experience. That's it.
Yeah.
That's why startup companies are like that. 2 years are like crazy. And then 3, 4, 5th year, they're bringing in different CEOs. They're bringing in different staff. If you even just pay attention to how companies are birthed, those first 2 years are crazy. And a lot of people wash out, but I think it's because they don't add the appropriate staff, right? Yeah. They're just hustling to death.
Yeah, absolutely right about that. And that's a lesson that I learned the hard way in my business, is that you have to have your game plan and it has to be, your exit plan has to be in sight. Right.
Oof, yes.
You have to make sure that you are putting things in place so that when the business and you're tracking the numbers, like you kind of touched on too, you're tracking the numbers to make sure that you're actually progressing towards that. And if not, you make a change or you jump ship because it's just not working out. You know what I mean? But you got to know all these things ahead of time. You can't just be coasting and thinking that you're going to get there because you're working hard. It's unfortunately not the case. Yeah.
One of the biggest things I've done like 6,000 paid phone consultations is know your numbers. If the numbers are telling you something, you have to, you can't outwit the math, right? Like the math is the math.
Numbers don't lie. Yep.
They don't. And so what happens is you'll get on the phone with people and something's been like, it started wrong. It's been wrong. And they still keep going through it. And it's like, no, stop. Stop. Like the numbers don't support what you're doing. And people in our community, I think sometimes people are like, you know, that one rapper that made it at 42. Yeah. You know, that one businessman that kept trying for 50 years and he got it. And I'm like, listen, I'm all about, I want you to live your dream. I want you to have the biggest hope ever, but I also want you to look at the numbers. So many times I'll get on the phone with people and they're a business owner and I go, well, what's your general numbers in your account right now? You mean right now in my account? I mean like a general number. They have no clue. I'm like, when I get up in the morning, when I first started business, not as much right now, but when I get up, I'll go QuickBooks. What's over here? What's over there? What's our numbers? What's the end of the week report? I did it for myself, like just to check myself.
How did you learn that? How did you know how to do that?
I have an aunt that's in the work for the IRS.
Yo, your family is the truth. Like, I love your family.
I'm gonna check the numbers, right? So, but what ends up happening is, how do you know if something's working? Like if you don't know your numbers, you don't know. And that's the difference between a job and a business, right? If you're at your job, you know you work this many hours. You know how people are when they're at their job. I work 14.7 hours. I better get paid. Right? They know.
In the sense. Yep.
But for some reason, when people get to business, all of a sudden they just like, oh, no. The way you was counting them hours at that job is the way you need to be looking at your finances. And what ended up helping me is banks. I would go to banks and they'd be like, you're a YouTuber,
Yeah.
e-commerce. What do you do? A consultant? Like they would act like I was coming in there like I'm selling drugs or something, right?
Right,
They'd be
right,
like,
right.
I don't understand. And so, or they would say, man, this is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
but we can't lend to you because I don't even know
I
what
don't
you're doing,
understand how
right?
this works. Yeah.
And so all those years I've been using QuickBooks, Stripe, and PayPal. In the same week, they told me no. Those 5 banks I went to, literally PayPal, Stripe, and QuickBooks gave me $25,000 loans each.
Wow.
The same time.
Yeah.
Because I had all this documentation tracking.
Yeah. I like how you got into that piece. What are your views on taking on debt? Because a lot of businesses don't want to take on debt. You know, I was one who I was just like, I'm gonna do it on my own. I don't need nobody's money. But that's not really
business.
a smart thing to do, right? So tell me what your thoughts are on that.
So here's the thing. All businesses are seasonal. I don't care who you are. All businesses are seasonal. No matter if you're doing barbecue plates, you're doing fish plates, you're doing lawyer stuff, you know,
Right.
every business is seasonal, right? And so if you really look at it, most businesses make a ton of money January to April, right? What's going on January to April? New year, new me. Yes. I'm gonna buy this gym membership. I'm gonna buy all this stuff. I'm gonna do all these things. I'm gonna spend my refund check money. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
that mentality is going on, right? Yeah. I'm gonna buy my new car, all that stuff, right? So all these industries get a bump January to April. But what happens in the summer? Everybody's like, oh, these kids eating me out of house and home. You know, I ain't got no money and
camp, all that. Yep.
Okay. So summer is a crunch. Any business, you can go look at all these numbers. Facebook every year loses about $600 million around April and May. Why? Because parents ain't buying. So companies don't advertise. So even Facebook gets hit in April.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, I was like, okay, every summer you see less YouTube views because people are outside and you see less people buying certain things. But then all of a sudden, August 25th, them kids get back into school. We're back up in the numbers, right? And I could see in QuickBooks the projections. Like it had already projected me every fall, spring up, fall up, summer down. And when I learned that, I was like, okay, well, how do other people, you know, long-term make it in business? So I spent about, I'll tell people honestly, about $78,000 in 2019. Okay. Just educating myself up to the level of a real company because I felt like I'm doing all this stuff. I'm hustling, money's coming in here and we're just laughing. We're having a great time. But where's the structure, right? 90% of the world works on structure. We need to work on it. And when I'm having a low season, why am I having a low season, right? Because I didn't understand cycles. Right. And so when I spent that money, every bit of the training was like, every business has seasons.
Everybody telling you this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Everybody has seasons. Bulk of people make their money in fourth quarter and the beginning of the year, and the summers are slow. No matter who you are, unless you're Dairy Queen ice cream, right? Right. That's the only people I can think of, right? And so when I started getting all these trainings, it was like create standard operating procedures, delegate this stuff. And I tell people all the time, if I could go back 4 years, I would hire a social media manager. I'd hire an in-house accountant from all the money I've spent. In-house. Full time.
Okay.
And then I'd have an executive assistant. These 3 people would always be at my office.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Those are great tips.
If you look at anybody trying to build a 7-figure business, $1 million business, the amount of time you spend on social media, planning, scheduling, like I hired a young lady, she was 23 and her only job was to get me interviews with podcasts, to fix my social media and run ads. In 4 months of her working for me full time, fresh out of college, I had 80 podcast interviews.
Wow.
Our numbers, we made
putting that on my list.
I'm telling you, like, because think about it, all day long, that's all they get up and do is reach out and contact people. That's all they're doing all day. So it's like their day is like, I contacted 20 people today. I contacted 100 people today. I ran, you know what I'm saying? Like they have numbers themselves that they're running, right? So by the time the end of 4 months came, I was like, man, from one interview alone, we made $40,000 off interviews, off consulting calls.
Wow.
Because I did this interview with this, you know, I'm just going to go there, white guy over here, business guy. And his audience were like, oh my God, trucking. Like, and so people would pay, right? You know, because I moved my consulting up to like $1,000 for an hour.
Wow.
So these people it was like 40 different companies had paid this $1,000 thing. I'm like, who is buying these?
Yeah.
And then I'd get on the phone and it'd be like, hey, we got you on speakerphone. We heard your interview with so-and-so. And I'm like, oh.
Wow.
And it was just, so imagine one interview got me $40,000
Wow.
from this one girl who I was paying really low. I paid her like $30K a year.
Okay.
And she came to me at 5 months and she was like, so either this company offered me $60K to work for them or you can match
What's
it.
it gonna look like?
I said, I'm going to let you go, right?
Okay.
Because it was like at the beginning of 2020.
Mm-hmm. And
now I look back, I'm like, girl, that was you could have gave her that.
Right.
Like she had made it. She had already made it back for you, what you paid her for the year. And so I always tell people like, that whole I can do it myself thing, let that go.
Yeah.
Let that go. I mean, if you know
right
anything, like if you sell courses and people who sell courses, know that people will buy from 10 p.m. at night to 2:00 in the morning. I don't know why, but your phone will ping, 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 ping in the middle of the night. You'll be like, what is going on?
Right.
And I think it's because right before people go to bed or they're home frustrated or they got to go to work tomorrow, they're like, I'm going to buy this course.
And I'm going to make it
change
tomorrow.
My life.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And so customer service issues, just little stuff. Same thing with trucking. Part of the reason I'm reducing all the trucks I have been involved with is like, it's a whole industry with levels and depths to it, right?
Yeah.
And so I had staff.
Hold on, before we get into that, because I definitely want you to talk about that.
Sure.
I wanted to point out to the audience, like the things that you said that were very important and instrumental in you growing the business. So you said, one, you looked at your numbers, you tracked your numbers, and you made sure you understood what was happening. You invested in the business because you invested in courses and educating yourself. And then I know there was another point that I wanted to make, something like, all right, I can't remember it.
It's who you hired, maybe?
Yes, yeah. Well, that's a good one. Yeah. Putting, hiring those key people who are going to help you scale once you see that you're able to do so, but as early as possible. So, all right. So now you open the door to you have this trucking business that is really thriving. How'd you get into that, and then how'd you scale it?
So this is the part where we learn. This is our learning contraction moment here.
Yeah.
This is like my moment where I learn. So everything's thriving. I've got people working in my office. I got people working over here. I'm like, I got, this trucking thing. Like my uncle did that for 20 years and I could do that. But what happened is I grew too fast. Instead of getting maybe 3 trucks is what I think I should have done.
Okay.
I got 11. And it was like things were going on. And so like 1 month you got $192,000 coming in. And then you got 5 trucks with blown engines. And you got to drop $20K for each engine to keep your pace. And so what I learned, and a big thing about my numbers, I'm like, ooh, these numbers is funky. Like they're not working for me, right?
Because you were watching them.
Because I was watching them. And so here's the thing. This is what I tell people. If you make $1 million online, digital phone calls, courses, all this stuff, and maybe your overhead's 15%, you having a good time.
Yeah.
When you have $1 million in a physical, very time consuming business and you look up and you only take home 20%.
Yeah.
You like, oh no, baby.
Yeah. This ain't gonna do it.
This ain't gonna do it. I'm not gonna put up with no headache for 200,000 when I can go launch courses and run ads and get that in a quarter.
Okay.
Why would I do that? Right. And so I tell people, you got to really do a self-assessment of an industry, the type of energy, the type of everything, right? And I documented a lot of this on YouTube where I'm a woman and I would talk to people at, repair shops or things would be happening.
Right.
And I had staff who could talk to them in mail, but I would go and do the final, purchasing. And they'd be like, well, can I speak to your husband? Can I speak to the owner of the company?
Really?
Can I speak to Ericka Williams? I'm like, now you see Ericka Williams on that.
You know what I'm saying? Don't play with me. Get off my phone.
Yeah. Or we would have men that would quit because they would come in, like they fill out all the internet stuff. They'd see my picture. Like I literally in our office, we had pictures of me by the trucks, like cheesy, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they would come to the office and talk to my office manager and be like, oh, y'all own this company? Oh, no, I work for her. It's a woman-owned company. They would quit.
Wow.
I had like 2 older men like quit. Like filled out everything online, went ahead and gave the yes to our office manager that hired them on the phone, got there and was like, oh, yeah, I don't want to work for a woman. And he was like, what?
That's crazy.
So you have this industry that is a culture all into itself, right?
Right.
And I always try to tell people like, 1, slow and steady wins race, but 2, start small. Like something may be going good with 1 or 2 trucks, but then all of a sudden you add extra headaches, extra problems, extra money, extra people, right? And I had people that worked one of my mechanics was a full-time mechanic, and people were like, "You got a full-time mechanic?" And I said, "Well, when somebody calls in the middle of the night about something, who's answering? Not
Right.
me,
Right.
right?"
Mm.
And so for me, when I started having a lot of problems in trucking, I started asking people who are experienced years into
Right.
the industry, well,
Mhm.
what's going on? Da 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 da. And a lot of guys were like, "Oh, you don't own the yard?" I said, "No." He
Mm.
said, "Oh, honey, that's how we make our money. We
Wow.
own the yard, we park our trucks, we rent all the other spaces out. We own extra trailers, we rent all the extra trailers out.
Mhm.
The money's in the ownership
Wow.
of the land." And
Mhm.
so the best way I can explain it is, who made the money during the gold rush? Was it the guys digging for gold, or was it the
Right.
guys who sold the shovels?
Mm. Okay. I'm
Right.
not sure,
So when you
but I know.
it's the guys selling the shovels. So
Mm.
when you would go look in trucking, the people that were making the most money are the repair side of things
Mhm.
and people who own truck yards. So there's a
Mm.
couple Nigerians who own big yards in Atlanta. And I'm talking about 400 trucks parked there, 300 trucks parked there. If every person in that yard is paying $300 a month to park there times 300 trucks, you do the math.
And they don't have to drive a Nan truck. They don't have to
Their truck,
do no
they don't have to
dispatch, none of
manage
that.
nobody. They don't
Mhm.
have to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're Nigerian. They're black owned. You know what I'm saying?
Loving it.
So in Dallas, there's a couple Condonesian. I don't want to say there. I'm saying it wrong. East
Mhm.
Congo or something.
Mhm.
They own 300 trucks, and they own them, but then they also lease to own to people. They own a bunch of trailers, rent those out. They
Mm.
have staff. Like in their video, it's so funny because they're so candid.
Mhm.
They're like, in America, they have this thing called equal opportunity. You have to like hire people, and they're laughing. They're like
Right.
mockingly laughing. And
Mm.
so they pan the camera to like the two white people in the office, like laughing about it. Like, yeah, in America, you have to hire people. And it's like, and so you have an industry where you have very entrenched, like immigrants, definitely in it. Definitely recruiting from other countries,
Mhm.
and so the local guy that's complaining, and the average time span of a driver being with your company is 90 days.
Mm.
On average, they quit
Only 90
in 90
days.
days.
Wow.
That's the average,
Yeah.
right? Because they get sign-on bonuses like 3 or 4 grand. So imagine a guy quits 4 times a year, he got an extra 12 grand. I don't care.
Jesus, there's a hustle in everything.
Yes. And so what I tell people is, when you're and I'll just say it, when you're like powdery, soft, middle class Erica, like, hey everybody, let's all work together.
Right.
You need a strong man or a blue collar hustle
Mhm.
toughness to trucking
Okay.
if you're not just gonna own land.
Okay.
So that's my one, like, over the years lesson learned. Like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, like there's some things you just may not excel in because it's just not the environment for you.
For you. Yeah. I love that. And
Mhm.
I love first of all, thank you so much for being so transparent because
Sure.
I know that trucking is a thing that you've done for a while and that you've pushed, but you're not afraid to say, "Hey, I did this and I learned some things." And,
Mhm.
and it's almost like failing fabulously, right? So it's not a fail,
It's
but you're
like,
like,
hey.
like this wasn't the end all be all. I learned something out of it. You would have never known this new avenue that you could even pursue if you hadn't done the whole thing, right?
And my big thing is, when I was growing up, people, all roads lead to real estate. And I'd
Mhm.
be like, what does that mean? I
Mhm.
don't mean this. But there's a thing in Texas called FM road, or county roads.
Okay.
And all roads lead to real estate. Now I say it all the time on my show, because I'm like, every time I've gone and looked at somebody with a business, them owning the land made the difference. Them
Mm.
owning the building made, like, 2020 happened, them owning the building made the difference.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And so, even with trucking, even though I have like maybe 4 trucks left that are with family and contracts,
Mhm.
um, our family owns land in North Carolina. So it's like they
Yeah.
park for free, they sit for free,
Yeah.
it's a whole different energy, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Even here in Texas, right? People are like, oh, these houses are expensive. I said, well, you can go 20 more minutes out and buy an acre and build your own house for like 200,000.
Wow.
And people are like, like it's like their brain malfunctioning because they have to think about it for a second, like,
Brain malfunction. It's too much.
oh, I can, right? And
Yeah.
so even here, I tell people, I'm like, all roads lead to real estate. Like, if you
Mhm.
see me talking more about real estate, it's because that's exactly what I'm doing. Like, every
Mhm.
conference, every mastermind I've paid to be at, every event I've been at, like, when I sat in the room with people who made a ton of money, either off the internet or from some physical product or e-commerce,
Mhm.
they immediately took their money and put it in some real estate.
Mm.
I had a friend when I started the whole trucking experience.
Right.
He said, "Listen, I'm gonna go buy apartments," and I was like, "Ah, yeah, I'm gonna start these truck thing."
Yeah.
And then over the course of 3 years, he's bought 39 mobile home parks and apartment complexes.
Parks. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. All
Wow.
over Texas, Huntsville, Alabama, and all he did is he's an engineer
Mm-hmm.
and he loves his numbers.
Yep.
And he literally was like, "Hey, I'm in Hawaii. A lot of people in Hawaii have these houses that are appreciated so crazy. So they do a cash out refi, but guess what? You got to make that money make money."
Mm-hmm.
And so they would invest with him and he'd have, just people from all over investing with him.
Wow.
And what I want you to understand is if you ever follow long-term, big historical money or old money, it's in land. Old money, I really want to dispel this myth. People think old money means, oh, they're rich. And no, if you're from the South, you're from North Carolina, South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, Florida, old money down South means I own a lot of land, but I'm probably church mouse poor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you go to Idaho, Yellowstone area, who has the money? It's
Right.
the guy who has the land because he can parcel out piece of it to make rental property, to do other stuff, and still keep the big bulk of the land.
Right.
And so really, old money meant land. We've changed it to mean a bunch of other stuff, but
Right.
it meant you had a ton of land. And with that land, you had the power to make income.
Right.
You could create stuff. You could create rentals. You could do all kind of stuff.
Right.
If you go down south, you see these people converting things to Airbnbs or cabins in the woods or weddings on the lake. And that's coming from them owning the land, right? Farms. You ever see farms start doing the pumpkin patch, the that, the
I was at one this weekend.
There you go, right? These are all things that this family is doing to generate money to keep the land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was looking around, I was like, all these people, they're making a killing, selling hot dogs that you could buy from the Walmart. You know what I mean? And just, they cashing in. Mm-hmm.
You taking pictures with pumpkins and hay, and they just out there they living it up. They happy you here.
Yeah.
Right. And so so that's something I just want people to understand. Anytime I go to any of these big masterminds, everybody in the room who's pulled a lot of money from the internet world, they're like, where can I go put it? Immediately. They don't go, let me go double down on some ads. They where can I go put this money?
Right.
Because something a lot of people don't understand, when two of my friends, when they first got out of East Carolina University, they bought a townhouse in Cary, North Carolina for $55,000. This is years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they put three grand down. Their parents, instead of giving them a car for graduation, they gave them $3,000 to close on this townhouse.
Right.
Well, then those same girls end up marrying, and the guy had a townhouse and she had a townhouse. Well, then they married and got a house. And then by the time you've talked to them 10 years later, they've got 7 or 8 rental property.
Wow.
And they don't make a lot of money because they're both teachers. They met at school, right?
Right. But they're living a good life, right?
But they're living a good life. Why? Because it's just simple things, simple investments that's taking them to live a good life.
That's awesome.
Ericka, I hope people get that.
Yeah, this was so good. Thank you so much. I'm glad I got to talk to you, and just all the information that you gave is really, really high level stuff that everyday people could use. So I love that. Yeah. So where can people find you? You have courses, you have your own channel. Where can I'm sure they're going to want more of you.
For sure. So you guys can check me out at YouTube at Ericka Williams, Classy Climb. I'm the third Ericka after, the Busted Challenge came out. I'm the third Ericka. That other Erickas keep taking that spot, right? But also you can find me on Instagram as Ericka's Classy Climb. You pretty much can check me out. I usually do a live Tech Tuesday where I bring on tech people to kind of talk about the industry growing. And then the rest of the week's kind of talking about the economy and ways to grow your income. So. Okay.
Awesome. So thank you again. And I hope you enjoyed being here, and I'm
in New York.
So guys, thanks for watching. Definitely follow Ericka. Definitely check her out. She has a whole lot of content, and she has over 50,000 followers. So it's good stuff, right? So tap in, and I'll see you guys next time.